look anywhere for a job online in game audio, you're going to see the same thing every single time. 5+ years of experience required, master level proficiency of Fmod and Ys also required, and you also need a basic mastery of necromancy and anti-gravity fields. Obviously these are slight exaggerations, but you know that it can be really difficult to find good entry-level jobs in the world of game audio. Job postings like this often leave people feeling super frustrated, because it basically means that you need a lot of experience to get any sort of job, which is the thing that would give you experience in the first place. So how are you supposed to get these sorts of jobs if you need a job to get a job? Well, in this video, we're going to dive into several points that are going to help you land a job in this field and circumvent all these insane requirements. The first thing to cover is why things are the way they are when it comes to these job postings. One thing to think about is that when these companies are posting these jobs online for sound design positions, whether entry level or senior level, it's already too late. Anytime that anyone gets any sort of permission to hire anyone, they've been wanting to hire someone for that position for months, if not years. Meaning, by the time that they're ready to hire someone, anyone, it means that they need someone who can jump in and work right now, without needing any sort of training or build-up to get them used to the workflow of working on that game. Because of these kind of insane hiring practices, it means that there's not a lot of room for entry-level jobs out there, or at least publicly posted entry-level jobs. See, the thing is that there are actually tons of these jobs in existence, but most of them aren't ever exposed to anyone online. The reason for this is pretty simple. Anytime any one of these big game studios posts an entry-level job, or really any audio job online, they get flooded with thousands upon thousands of applicants, and most of them are frankly terrible. And it's a huge process to have to sort through all of these applicants to find the one or two good ones that could be potentially hired for these roles. This whole process of getting thousands upon thousands of applicants incentivizes these companies to never post these jobs online, because the amount of time it takes for them to sort through them is just absurd. So what many of these companies do instead is that they hire basically entirely off of references. Usually what happens is that an internal email goes out to the team that's already working at these companies, and they ask, does anyone know anyone who could work at this position? Someone responds, says yes, and the person that they referred gets hired. Sometimes that job is still posted online, but usually it's not. Someone gets hired and then they're in the role without anyone else knowing that this was even a possibility. Obviously, this might sound infuriating, but there are ways to use this kind of system that exists pretty much in every industry to your advantage. And the way to do this is actually pretty simple. It's to start freelancing. Now, that's not necessarily the thing that most people in this field want to hear, because usually when they hear freelancing, they hear things like insecurity or needing to go from gig to gig. And while yes, those can be parts of the freelancing world, there are also upsides to it as well. As you freelance, you're going to be building up a portfolio of work, you're going to be building experience, and you're also going to be building a very strong network. The combination of these three things are the things that are going to end up in you getting every single job that you want. And while you certainly can get hired for the job of your dreams outside of school or at the very beginning of your career, without this portfolio or experience or network or really knowing anyone in the field, it's going to be very hard. And honestly, it's a very rare thing to happen to anyone. And as you start to work with people on small projects all the way to big projects, as you kind of grow your career over time, that is what's going to get you the portfolio that's going to impress every single employer out there. And as you grow this portfolio and as you grow this network, it's very likely that you're going to be referred to the jobs that we just talked about. As you freelance more and more over the years, working on whatever projects you can find, you'll notice that your network grows. And this is one of the most important things when it comes to the world of freelancing. Eventually, if you work on enough projects and build up your portfolio as much as you possibly can, you'll start to realize that things like your website or demo reel or anything like that that you thought was super important become irrelevant, because people start to know you, like you, and trust you, and thus just hire you outright for any gig that comes up. Now, you might be wondering how to start this whole freelancing process. And if you're at the very beginning of your career, it's actually quite simple. I recommend you start getting into events called game jams, which are essentially these gatherings of people over time where they start to make a game in maybe 48 hours or a week, a very, very short period of time. And the thing about these game jams, where just kind of getting together and making a game in a short period of time, is that it doesn't matter if you don't know what you're doing, because the games that you're going to end up making throughout are just hot garbage basically no matter what. But the point of these is to gain experience working on a team in a very short period of time and to, of course, have fun doing it. You're going to pick up skills that you never would have on your own by talking to other people like programmers and artists and other developers, and you're going to have this perfect microcosm of the real game development experience in a really short period of time. And the thing is, these events are mostly free, so you can just kind of show up and start making games with all sorts of people all over the world, both online and in person, wherever you are. And the people that you work with at these game jams will eventually go on to become high-level pros in the industry if they're not already. And these are the people that you might end up working with for years and years and years throughout your career. So it's well worth attending these as much as you humanly can at the start of your career to build that network up. Now, if you're looking for game jams to attend online or offline and in person, then I have a link in the description that shows a huge list of every single game jam happening all around the world at any given time. Now, this isn't the only way to start building your portfolio and experience in the field. A key thing to do is to actually just meet people and talk to them and get to know them as friends. And similar to game jams, attending online and offline events are absolutely excellent for that. And you'll find that the game industry is actually a pretty friendly and welcoming industry, especially compared to some others. So it's not going to be as hard as you may have heard it is to break into this field as it is in others. The core of this is to essentially show up to what are known as networking events, where people just show up at a place, hang out, and chat. And this can happen both online and offline, and these happen all over the world considering the game industry is so global. The thing is, when you start showing up to these events very consistently, people start to know, like, and trust you. And trust is the emotion that people use to hire other people. When they trust you, they're just going to hire you sight unseen sometimes without even looking at your website or reel or anything like that as well. And the more people know that you exist, the more likely you are to just find work in general. So if you need to find any sort of networking events in the game industry in your area, I also have another link down below that you can click and just see a huge list of them. Now, I know that these tips sound really simple, but I want to illustrate this with a story of when I was in LA in 2015. I was speaking at a little event in Los Angeles in 2015, and I got off the stage and started mingling with the crowd afterwards. When I was in the crowd, someone came up to me and told me that they were a composer and they just had the hardest time finding work, especially in Los Angeles where basically everybody is a composer. Now, the funny thing is, I gave him some advice and sent him on his way, and less than 20 seconds later, a game developer came up to me and said, "Do you know any composers? I can't find anyone." Now, here's the key. Again, this was in Los Angeles. Everybody's a composer in Los Angeles. Your Lyft driver is a composer. The garbage man is a composer. Everybody's a composer, and this game developer couldn't find anyone. The key here is that this composer who was struggling to find work wasn't putting themselves out there in the right circles, but they were in the right room at the right time. I connected these two and now they're working together. But the funny thing is if that composer wasn't in that room at that time, where frankly very few other composers were, he wouldn't have gotten that gig. The bar is extremely low for people in audio to actually just show up to things because frankly we tend not to. We're very introverted, I am too, and we tend to just kind of like to hide in our caves and just work all day every day. Unfortunately, that's not going to work for us. If we want to find work in the field, people need to know we exist, otherwise they don't know that they can even hire us in the first place. So, even though these tips are simple, they're not executed on very often. So if you just simply show up to things, you're going to be way ahead of 99% of the pack. And eventually, your efforts will pay off. If you're freelancing regularly and showing up to these events and working on projects, building your portfolio, and building your network, you will eventually be able to get the jobs that you want. But it's not going to happen overnight. This is a very long-term process and takes a ton of consistency to be able to do. But if you do it, you're going to be able to get whatever jobs you want. Now, later this year, I actually do have an online course coming out that will teach all of this stuff and go more in depth into it. And this will be a bit different than all my other courses that exist out there because a lot of them are cohort-based and sell out in literally just a few minutes. But this will be more self-paced and something that you can jump into and out of whenever you want. So if you want to know when that course is coming out and be the first to know, be sure to be on my newsletter. That's going to give you free access to 2 free courses right now, and will keep you in the know of when this next course is coming out to help you grow your skills, build your network, and actually charge for your work in the game industry. All right, that's it for now. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Go pet a dog.